Imagine being trapped underground, unable to escape, while the very people searching for you are walking through the woods just above your head. You can hear them. You know they are close, maybe only a few feet away.
But they cannot see you. You cannot safely call out. And as their footsteps slowly disappear into the distance, you realize something terrifying. They may never come back. That was the nightmare facing 14-year-old Elizabeth Shoaf.
For 10 days, her family desperately searched for her. Police searched the surrounding woods. Volunteers looked for any clue that could explain where she had gone. But Elizabeth had not disappeared far away. She was hidden almost unbelievably close to home. And the person holding her believed he had created the perfect hiding place. What he did not realize was that the frightened teenager he had kidnapped was watching him, studying him, and quietly waiting for one mistake. Because Elizabeth was about to prove that sometimes survival does not begin with physical strength. Sometimes it begins with patience. And one stolen opportunity. Stay until the end, because the way Elizabeth helped police find her is one of the most remarkable parts of this entire case. It began on September 6th, 2006, in Lugoff, South Carolina. Elizabeth Shoaf was 14 years old. That afternoon appeared ordinary. School was over, and Elizabeth was making her way home after getting off her school bus. She had no reason to believe that within minutes her life would change completely. As Elizabeth walked along the road, she encountered a man named Vinson Filyaw, but Elizabeth did not initially know who he really was. Filyaw presented himself as someone she had been taught to trust. A law enforcement officer. He claimed that Elizabeth was in trouble. According to Elizabeth's later account, he suddenly put handcuffs on her and told her that she was under arrest.
Think about the confusion of that moment. Elizabeth was only 14. A grown man appearing to represent the law was telling her that she had to go with him. She could not have known that this man was no police officer.
And she could not have known what was hidden in the woods ahead. Filyaw led Elizabeth away from the road and deeper into a wooded area. Eventually, they reached something almost impossible for anyone passing nearby to notice: an underground bunker. It was concealed beneath the ground and hidden by the surrounding vegetation. This was not simply a hole that had been dug quickly. Filyaw had constructed hidden spaces in the area, places that could help someone disappear from view. And now one of those underground spaces was about to become Elizabeth's prison. Once she realized what was happening, the terrible truth became clear. She had not been arrested. She had been kidnapped. Above her was the normal world.
Roads, homes, people going to work, police officers beginning a missing person investigation, her frightened family waiting for her to walk through the door. But Elizabeth was underground, and incredibly, she was only around a mile from home. When Elizabeth did not return, alarm spread quickly. Her family knew something was wrong. This was not simply a teenager staying away without telling anyone. Something had happened.
Search efforts began. Police entered the woods. Searchers moved across the area looking for anything that might reveal where Elizabeth had gone. Dogs were used. All-terrain vehicles were brought in.
People examined the surrounding land, and yet the bunker remained hidden. Imagine what that must have been like for Elizabeth. Later accounts revealed something heartbreaking. She could hear people searching nearby.
At times, searchers were so close that she could hear them walking above or around the concealed area. Help was right there, but the bunker had been hidden so effectively that the people trying to save her did not know what was beneath them. That detail makes the case almost unbearable to imagine. A missing girl, a massive search, and the distance separating them was sometimes only a few feet of earth. Inside the bunker, Elizabeth faced another problem. Filyaw had convinced her that trying to escape could get her killed. She had to make decisions carefully. One wrong movement could reveal that she was planning something. One failed attempt could remove whatever small freedom she still had.
So Elizabeth began doing something incredibly intelligent. She paid attention. She observed her captor. She learned his behavior. She waited. This was not surrender. It was survival.
For a person trapped in such circumstances, remaining calm enough to recognize an opportunity can be the difference between escape and disaster. Days passed. One day became 2, then 3, then more.
Outside, her family continued hoping. But hope becomes harder when a missing child seems to have vanished without leaving any clear trail. Every hour brings more questions. Did someone take her? Was she injured?
Had she been moved somewhere else? Was she even still alive? For Elizabeth's family, there were no easy answers. Meanwhile, the truth was hidden beneath the South Carolina woods. Elizabeth was alive, and she was thinking. She understood something important. Escaping by simply running might not work. She needed help to come directly to her. For that to happen, she needed communication.
And eventually, she noticed the object that could change everything. Filyaw had a cell phone. Today, seeing a cell phone does not seem unusual. But inside that bunker, the device represented a connection to the outside world.
To Elizabeth, it was more than a phone. It was a possible lifeline. The challenge was getting access to it without Filyaw stopping her. So she waited for the right moment. Eventually, her opportunity came.
Her captor fell asleep. Elizabeth managed to get hold of the phone. Now imagine the pressure. You have been missing for days. Your family does not know whether you are alive. The man holding you is nearby. You do not know how long he will remain asleep. You have only seconds or minutes. Who do you contact? What do you say? And how do you give enough information for people to find a hidden bunker in the middle of the woods?
Elizabeth contacted the person she knew would understand immediately. Her mother. The message essentially told her mother that it was Elizabeth and that she was alive. More importantly, Elizabeth gave clues about where she believed she was being held.
She described the area. She referred to a location near where large trucks traveled. She explained that she was in a hole. For her mother, receiving that message must have been almost impossible to process.
After days of fear and silence, suddenly there were words from Elizabeth. She was alive, but she was trapped. Her family immediately contacted police. Now investigators had something they had desperately needed: a direct connection to Elizabeth. Police began working with the information from the cell phone and the clues Elizabeth had provided. Technology could help narrow down where the phone was being used. But Elizabeth still had to survive long enough for officers to reach her. And then another extraordinary moment occurred. Investigators managed to communicate with her. The teenage girl trapped underground became part of her own rescue operation.
She provided information. Authorities used cell phone location techniques and her description of the surroundings to narrow the search. After 10 days of uncertainty, the investigation suddenly had direction. Officers moved toward the location. Imagine entering those woods, knowing that somewhere beneath the trees might be a 14-year-old girl who had been missing for more than a week. Every step mattered. Every hidden patch of ground mattered. Then, finally, they found the bunker.
And there was Elizabeth, alive, after 10 days. The girl who had disappeared after getting off her school bus was coming home. For the officers involved, the relief was enormous. For Elizabeth's family, the nightmare that had consumed every waking moment finally changed. Their daughter was alive, but one problem remained. Vinson Filyaw was not there when Elizabeth was recovered.
The man accused of kidnapping her had disappeared. Now the search changed. Police were no longer searching for Elizabeth. They were searching for the man accused of holding her underground. And authorities already knew that Filyaw was familiar with the woods. This was not someone who had randomly wandered into the area. Investigators learned that he had constructed multiple hidden bunkers. He knew how to disappear.
But the same landscape that had helped conceal him was now filled with law enforcement. His advantage was disappearing. The following day, authorities captured him. The man who had pretended to represent the law was now actually in police custody.
As investigators examined the case, they learned more about the concealed underground structures. Reports described bunkers containing supplies that could allow someone to remain hidden for extended periods. Food, cooking equipment,
Propane containers, makeshift sleeping arrangements. The underground hiding places had been designed to be difficult to see from above. Suddenly, investigators understood why search teams had been able to pass so close without discovering Elizabeth.
The bunker had been built to disappear into its surroundings. But Filyaw had underestimated something. He had built a hiding place. He had not built a prison capable of defeating Elizabeth's determination to survive.
The criminal case that followed exposed the horrifying reality of what Elizabeth had endured. She later spoke publicly about being threatened, tortured, and sexually assaulted during her captivity. She was 14 years old.
Yet when Elizabeth eventually began speaking publicly about the experience, she refused to allow those 10 days to become the only definition of her life. There is an important difference between surviving an event and recovering from one.
The rescue ended the physical captivity. It did not instantly remove the memories. Elizabeth later described having nightmares and panic attacks. Some days were good, others were difficult.
Trauma does not disappear simply because the danger is gone. But Elizabeth began rebuilding, and something remarkable happened. Instead of disappearing from the world, she eventually chose to speak.
In 2008, Elizabeth appeared publicly at a crime victims event in South Carolina. She talked about what happened to her. She talked about surviving. She talked about continuing forward even when the memories returned.
That takes another kind of courage. During captivity, courage meant staying calm enough to survive. After captivity, courage meant learning how to live again. Vinson Filyaw ultimately received a life sentence for his crimes. But the part of this case people continue remembering is not simply what he did. It is what Elizabeth did. Think about the chain of decisions. She recognized that physically overpowering her captor was unlikely, so she observed him. She gained enough opportunity to access his cell phone. She remembered information about the surrounding area. She contacted her mother. She communicated useful location details. And when authorities began closing in, she continued helping them understand where she was. At 14 years old, after days underground, under extreme fear. That is why investigators praised Elizabeth for playing such an important role in her own rescue. But there is another detail about this story that is difficult to forget. During the search, people had been close, very close. Elizabeth later told her family that she had heard searchers nearby. Imagine being one of those searchers and later discovering that the missing girl had been underneath the area you were walking through. It demonstrates just how difficult hidden captivity cases can be. Sometimes a missing person is not hundreds of miles away. Sometimes they have not crossed a state line. Sometimes they are not even outside the original search zone. Sometimes the difference between finding someone and missing them is a camouflaged opening beneath leaves and branches. And that brings us to perhaps the most chilling question in the Elizabeth Shoaf case. What would have happened if Filyaw had never fallen asleep with that cell phone within Elizabeth's reach? What if Elizabeth had been too frightened to take it? What if she had been unable to remember enough information about her surroundings? What if her mother had ignored the unfamiliar message? One small change could have produced a completely different ending.
Instead, Elizabeth saw an opportunity, and she took it. Her story is sometimes described as the case of a kidnapped girl who was rescued from an underground bunker. That description is true, but it leaves out something important. Elizabeth was not simply waiting for someone to save her. She participated in saving herself. She remained aware. She gathered information. She recognized her moment.
And when that moment arrived, she acted. Her captor had taken away her freedom. He had isolated her. He had hidden her underground. But he had not taken away her ability to think. And in the end, that was the one thing he could not control. 10 days after Elizabeth Shoaf disappeared on an ordinary walk home from her school bus, she stepped back into the world alive. The search was over. Her family had their daughter back, and the underground bunker that had been designed to keep her invisible became evidence of a crime that shocked the country. Years later, Elizabeth's name is remembered not only because of what happened to her, but because of what she did when almost every advantage was against her.
She waited. She watched. She survived. And then she sent the message that changed everything. A teenage girl, a sleeping captor, a cell phone, and a few words reaching a frightened mother.
Sometimes rescue arrives with sirens. Sometimes it arrives with helicopters and search teams. But in Elizabeth Shoaf's case, rescue began quietly, underground, with a 14-year-old girl, holding a phone in her hands and refusing to believe that nobody would find her.
And perhaps that is the most powerful part of the story. Vinson Filyaw believed the bunker had hidden Elizabeth from the world. But Elizabeth found a way to make the world hear her. And once it did, he could no